We're having a very hard time with judges because they don't want people to be moved out of the country. Shockingly, nobody's ever had this before, no other president. There's never been a time when this has ever become an issue.
The judge that was arrested in Wisconsin for allegedly helping someone with a deportation warrant to evade ICE and an arrest, well, there are some challenges she's going to have to overcome in trying to prove her innocence. The number one thing the prosecutors are going to worry about, intent.
She directs them to go see the chief judge. So while they do that, she goes back in the courtroom, gets back on the bench while a prosecutor is sitting there with two victims of domestic violence and tells the defense attorney and the defendant, Ruiz, to come in the back with her. She takes them in the back in a private area, this is appalling, through her chambers, lets them back out and leave. One of the DEA agents, I believe, sees them exiting and doesn't know what's going on. So she continues with her docket, finishes her docket. Two victims sit in court all morning long, waiting. At the end, the prosecutor said, "What happened? Why didn't the case get called?" She removed it from the docket without telling anyone, had them go out a door to leave. Then ICE, meaning the ICE team, DEA, FBI, have to chase him down, which is what is so dangerous, outside the courthouse by an intersection. Pedestrians could have been killed. He could have been hurt. They could have been hurt. They catch him, take him into custody.
Did this judge really intend to help this person get away, go through a back door of a courthouse? Or was the judge's intent to remove whatever chaos the scene may have created and instead have that person go to a non-public area? Well, if that's the case, perhaps you're thinking about the chilling effect of ICE agents at a courthouse. For witnesses to a crime, for victims of a crime who were in a similar undocumented position, perhaps they'd be less inclined to report crimes, let alone testify in open court, if they believe that their deportation might be looming. On the other hand, there is the ethical obligation of an officer of a court not to do anything to undermine the ability of law enforcement to bring into custody someone with an active warrant. Now, what type of warrant will be a part of the conversation and its validity, but it's a separate inquiry for this particular case that will be a part of a larger discussion. What is the role of a warrant in a courthouse? Is the fact that a defendant has an active warrant enough for a judge to allow that person to be taken into custody? Or should they turn a blind eye because the chilling effect? That's the big question.
The Trump administration has arrested a federal judge after ICE agents tried to barge into her courtroom to arrest a defendant in her case. Federal Judge Hannah Dugan was conducting criminal proceedings against someone sought by ICE agents. And when those agents came to her court looking for that person, she told them to go somewhere else. She did this because she had a constitutional obligation to administer due process rights for that defendant. But as we have seen this year, the Trump administration doesn't want to wait for trials or process. They just want to grab anyone they want and ship them off to El Salvador. This is the first time the Trump administration has escalated his war on the judiciary branch by actually arresting an officer of the court. Congress must take action. The president may not arrest judges he disagrees with.
Everyone should be up in arms regarding federal judges being arrested for doing their job. The moment that this administration starts coming after the federal judges, we have a problem. We are in a constitutional crisis. The executive branch thinks that they are above the law. And of course, Congress erupts over FBI arrest of Wisconsin judge. Democratic lawmakers reacted with ferocity and some Republicans with cheers to the Friday arrest of Wisconsin Judge Hannah Dugan for allegedly helping an undocumented defendant avoid arrest from ICE agents. According to Axios, why does this matter? To Democrats, the arrest marks a significant escalation in President Trump's efforts to consolidate power and use federal law enforcement to crush legal obstacles to his agenda. Some Democratic lawmakers came out and said that it is remarkable that the administration would dare to start arresting state court judges. Others went on to say the Trump administration, again, is breaking norms in how it's dealing with immigration, the legal system, and normalcy. This is stuff I expect from third world countries. And of course, coming from the spineless Republicans, this is what they came out and said. One said, judges are not supposed to write the law, and they certainly are not above it. How can he, being that you voted for a 34-time convicted felon adjudicated? Representative Troy Niels from Texas, a staunch Trump ally, told Axios he too supports the arrest, exclaiming, "Lock 'em up." Republican Representative Tim Burkitt from Tennessee said if she broke the law, she needs to be prosecuted to the fullest extent. No double standards. So when you have spineless Republicans speaking out against judges that are doing their job on a federal level, we have a problem. Everyone should be up in arms about this.
The Trump administration's now arresting judges because the FBI just arrested a Wisconsin judge for allegedly obstructing the arrest of an undocumented person in her courthouse by allegedly telling them where the exit door was. A move that many have described as authoritarian by Trump and a clear attempt to intimidate the courts into complying with his illegal actions. And this is you, the Attorney General, saying to judges on Fox today, "We will come after you and we will prosecute you. We will find you." Right? And this is you have experts saying that Trump's still violating court orders from the Supreme Court and continues to violate people's constitutional rights. And then actually, on top of this, we have the news that the DOJ has authorized law enforcement to go into people's homes without a search warrant if they suspect that they're an alien enemy. Though this is, you have experts saying there's no Alien Enemies Act exemption to the Fourth Amendment and saying this is a clear-cut violation of our rights. Right? And this also comes as reportedly Trump wants to use the Alien Enemies Act to send Americans to El Salvador. Additionally, the DOJ has rescinded a policy that blocked prosecutors from seizing reporters' records in criminal investigations, forcing reporters to disclose who their sources are, which appears to be a flagrant violation of the First Amendment and freedom of the press. With now more and more people saying that Americans are under attack, that this is a concentrated effort to consolidate power and instill a dictator who seeks to undermine your life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Right? And while it appears that the courts are doing their job defending the system, they're also toothless without support from Congress. Right? And this is the founders wrote extensively to future Americans on what to do if we ever find ourselves in the jaws of tyranny like they once did. And actually, funny enough, it's the 250th anniversary of their revolution.
As soon as I heard that Trump's FBI director announced that the FBI went to arrest a Milwaukee, Wisconsin judge for allegedly obstructing an immigration arrest operation, I knew I needed more details. They say, "We believe Judge Dugan intentionally misdirected federal agents away from subject to be arrested in her courthouse, Eduardo Flores Ruiz, allowing the subject, an illegal alien, to evade arrest. Thankfully, our agents chased down the perp on foot and he's been in custody since." But here's what they don't tell you. He was in the middle of another trial in the state courthouse for state law proceedings. So rather than immigration officers just wait until the hearing was over so that they could apprehend him later like they ended up doing anyway, they showed up in the middle of their proceedings. Judge Hannah Dugan was angry about that because he deserves his due process. He was angry that these federal agents for a civil court, because immigration court is a civil court proceeding, that they showed up to her courthouse for this federal overreach to rip this defendant out in the middle of his trial. I don't ever want to hear a Republican utter the term states' rights. I don't ever want to hear a Republican say that they're the party of small government. I don't ever want to see a Republican waving that Gadsden flag, you know, the don't tread on me yellow flag. You might as well use it for toilet paper if you back this up, if you support this. If the man was guilty, let him get that guilty verdict first. Then you go along with procedure. I don't understand why this is freaking hard, but I should expect nothing less from a corrupt organization that goes and abducts people while they cover their faces and wear plain clothes in unmarked vehicles.
Well, if you're wondering where we're at on the march toward fascism, here we are arresting judges. Yes, FBI arrests a Milwaukee judge accused of helping a man evade immigration authorities. This is the judge, Milwaukee Judge Hannah Dugan. She got arrested for obstructing justice and some other charges. So the quick story, ICE agents show up at a courthouse with an administrative warrant. Now, administrative warrant is one that's not signed by a judge. That's a judicial warrant. And from what I've read, administrative warrants do not give you the authority to go into a courthouse. So they showed up and she said, "This is ridiculous. I'm not about this." And then she went and got the person they were looking for and had the lawyer escort him out of the building. And now she has been arrested because ICE agents entered a courtroom of a judge without an official warrant. They had an administrative warrant, but once again, that's one not signed by a judge, and she did not recognize its authority. And because of that, she's been arrested. The lines have been drawn. We knew this was going to happen. Now let's see where it goes. People are going to have to stand up and take the hits. And I hate to say that because it's not me doing it, but judges across this nation are going to have to make a decision. Do you follow the rule of law, or do you follow the rule of King Donald Trump as the MAGAs have appointed him? That's the question. That's the story. Let's see where this continues to go. Will it hold up? So that's where we're at. Fascism Watch, Friday, April 25th. We are now arresting judges.
I am, in fact, the only person at FBI headquarters, so I am going to post. Anyway, here's my sign. Not everyone is returning from lunch, so it's very good timing. Okay, I'm not fitting it in very well, but just me and a lot of federal employees who probably grew up really wanting to do the right thing and instead are working for an institution that just arrested a judge today because they weren't complying with ICE trying to deport someone to a death camp. Not too late to quit your job. I'm here because I quit my job, so I'm unemployed, so I could come for the lunch hour. We live in hell.
Okay, so this is it. Trump is in serious trouble, okay? His FBI director, Kash Patel, arrested a federal judge for supposedly aiding and abetting like an undocumented worker or whatever in court. I never would have imagined that it would have gone this far. Trump is done. First of all, he will have no choice but to get rid of Kash Patel, and the Department of Justice is going to be in serious trouble. A judge. They had the gall to arrest a judge based on what the judge did in her courtroom. Let the games begin, because this is part of the beginning of the end. You just can't do this. At the end of the day, the responsibility lies with Donald Trump. So the only way he will try to wiggle out of this is by firing Kash Patel, for sure. And even that's not going to save Trump. The Supreme Court will probably get involved. You do not arrest a federal judge on something that they did in their courtroom, because there's due process there as well. Toast. Toast. They're toast.
So a couple weeks ago, The Onion posted this satirical headline joking about a judge giving the Trump administration 3 days to return her from a prison in El Salvador. Well, we are now creeping closer to that being a reality, because today news broke that the Trump administration has abused the power of the FBI to arrest 2 different judges. In both of these cases, these judges are accused of allegedly aiding and abetting undocumented immigrants who are trying to evade ICE, but the facts are incredibly sketchy. In the case of the Wisconsin judge arrested today, there was an undocumented man in her courtroom who was there for a legal immigration proceeding. He was not there defending any criminal charges, and he was not accused of violating the law. The government argues this judge committed a crime when she told this man and his attorney that they could exit out of a different door of her courtroom. Not to mention the fact that there is documentary evidence of this man and his attorney walking right past ICE agents in a public hallway. Needless to say, these charges appear to be totally fabricated and baseless, and the Trump administration even came forward to say that this is an all-out war on the judiciary. When asked about these insane arrests, Attorney General Pam Bondi said on live television that they are sending a very strong message that they will come after judges, they will prosecute them, and they will find them. So let's be really clear what's happening. The Trump administration is firing a warning shot against judges and trying to scare them out of ruling against him for fear that they will literally be arrested and, who knows, maybe deported to El Salvador.
A state judge was just arrested by the FBI and federally charged with obstruction for interfering with an arrest by ICE.
This is all super nuanced and inflammatory as hell, but it all started when an undocumented immigrant was first deported from the US back in 2013. The man then illegally re-entered the US at some undetermined point and was recently charged with domestic battery.
When the man went to court for that case, federal immigration agents were notified and came to the courthouse to arrest him and start the deportation process.
This is the first interesting point. Under Biden, ICE agents were banned from going to courthouses to make arrests. The idea being that this would dissuade non-citizens from showing up to court and dealing with their issues, make courthouses more dangerous, and affect due process rights.
But Trump changed that, and ICE agents can make arrests in courthouses again. So when the judge presiding over this man's case heard that ICE agents were in the building, she did a few things. At least according to the criminal complaint, which, as an important reminder, only includes allegations written to favor the government's position.
The complaint says that the judge distracted the federal agents, secretly canceled the man's hearing, and let him out a non-public door so he could exit the courthouse. The man was ultimately spotted outside and arrested after after a brief foot chase. If these allegations are true, it would amount to the crime of obstruction.
But lots of issues here. First, as even the complaint mentions, there was a genuine dispute raised by the judge regarding the type of warrant the feds had. They had an administrative warrant, and it's not clear whether this type of lower warrant even allows arrests in courthouses, meaning the judge was arguably acting to prevent an unlawful arrest.
This is also not the second judge recently charged by the feds.
And critics would argue that this is all just an attempt by the Trump admin to strike fear into the judicial brain. Because even when judges act improperly, the traditional response is to refer them to an ethics committee.
Straight up arresting and charging sitting judges is unusual.
Look at this here. This is the mugshot of a judge who was arrested for interfering with the arrest of an illegal alien. A criminal illegal alien. I wonder how many times her bias made her favor certain people and make unfair rulings, unfair judgments. Activism doesn't belong in our courtrooms.
Now, once again, I got to admit that I was wrong about Pam Bondi. It's not that I didn't support her. I actually threw my full weight of support in the very beginning. But as the months rolled by and nobody was getting locked up for the crimes that they had committed, I was beginning to second guess the entire process. But lo and behold, here we are with back-to-back arrest of these so-called judges, aka activist judges, who believe that it is their job to protect their own cult-like ideology than it is to actually obey the law. And I know all this rhetoric from the left, oh, they're persecuting judges. This is what the little mustache man did. He threw the judges into prison, etc. Well, guess what? In the same way, y'all continue to spew this rhetoric of nobody is above the law. You know, when you tried to put a sitting president into prison, raided his family's home, continued to put bogus charges on him as he was looking to run for office once again. Yeah. In the same way nobody was above the law then, nobody is above the law. So in breaking news, a Milwaukee judge by the name of Hannah Dugan has officially been arrested on charges of essentially misleading ICE as far as illegal immigrants went. So basically she was helping individuals to harbor illegal immigrants as well as misleading federal agents from doing their damn job in putting either criminals into detention or putting illegal immigrants into, well, essentially into the places that they're supposed to be in the first place, their countries of origin, where they're citizens, etc. You know, that sort of thing. So yeah, this is what I voted for. This is literally it.